Well, welcome into this edition of the Pat White Show. Today, we're going to be talking about health insurance and how it affects you, and how it affects me, and how it affects everybody else in America because, well, frankly, we're all in this thing together. Here's the deal. If you remember back around 2013, 2014, the Democrats were running the country. They had control of the House and the Senate, and they had Barack Obama as the president. They were able to do whatever the heck they wanted to do, and so they decided to come up with a health care plan to take care of people that, well, frankly, financially, were on the lower end of the scale. And that's perfectly fine. I understand the concept. So what they did was they developed something called Obamacare, or the Affordable Care Act, as it was called. It was a really thick thing. I mean, it was really thick. Trouble was nobody knew what was in it, and the problem was that they passed it without anybody seeing what was in the thing. And remember, Nancy Pelosi, she was the Speaker of the House at the time. She said, "Well, we can't know what's in it until we pass it." Well, that was the plan. You couldn't know what was in it until it was passed. Nobody in the Republican Party voted for it. The only ones to vote for it were the Democrats, but they were in power. Democracy, if you will. They were in power and said, "No, we're passing this." Well, here's what came out of the deal. All right, so they were going to give affordable health care to people under the age of, or under the income level of, say, $150,000 a year combined income. That'd be like a husband and wife both working and earning about $65,000 a year. They would get the Obama health care, the ACA health care, they called it, and other people call it Obamacare, and they would finally get their health insurance. And why? Well, because it changed the rules for health insurance. Now, you could be 26 years of age and still be on your parents' health care program. So you got somebody who was, say, it used to be 21, well, they moved it up to 26, all right? 26, you can stay on mom and dad's health care program. They decided to live in mom and dad's house. They're still doing it today. Well, the second thing was the government mandated. Mandated means like you will. The government mandated, they said, okay, everybody has to have health insurance. Everybody, you, me, you name it, everybody had to have health insurance, and you had to prove it to the IRS. So you had to fill out the form saying, yeah, here's what I've got, here's what I'm doing, here's the company I'm with. Everybody had to prove to the Internal Revenue Service that you, in fact, had health care. Well, at that point, everybody had to get health insurance. Everybody did. And if you had a previous a condition that the health insurance companies would not pass or would not accept, well, those conditions went by the wayside. Whatever you previously had, you were going to be covered by your insurance. So the non-insurable people suddenly became insured. All right. So what happens? Everybody has to have health insurance coverage. Okay, fine. And the government's going to have Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act for the people under a certain level of income. And they said, I think it was around under $150,000 family income. They could qualify for Obamacare, and they had to go on a network, on an internet site that cost a boatload of money, an internet site, and pick out the plan that they wanted. And that was the plan they were under. All right, sounds pretty fine in the beginning, didn't it? Well, then what happened was the Congress back around 2015 said, the healthcare companies are starting to raise the policy prices for anybody who was on Obamacare or regular people who weren't. I was not on Obamacare. My wife and I, we didn't have it. We had our own insurance policy. But even our insurance policy started to climb up in cost. We weren't necessarily using it, but turns out everybody's health insurance policies were going up. Why? Well, because everybody had to have insurance, and pre-existing conditions now were covered. Now the insurance companies had to pay for all this. So what happened? Well, I want you to take a look at this graph, and this is the reason I've got this up on the screen for you to see. The Obama plan premiums, now what it costs you for your insurance every year. Here's the deal. Take a look down here at 2014. This is when everything started to come into them. Now we got three different graphs here. You got the premium plan for someone who's 50 years of age. That's the ACA benchmark plan for a premium. Okay, that's pretty much the top of the line. Not everybody has that, but understand we got to have a number to work with. All right, that's what then. The dark blue line, that's the average employer-based individual plan premium. So if you're one of those millions of people that had your employer's insurance rather than Obamacare, as they called it, because that only affected about 25 million people. So you 25 million with Obamacare. Everybody else, you and me, we all have our own insurance through a company, through whatever it is. That's where we got our insurance. All right. And the third one, the light blue line, is the Consumer Price Index. That's kind of what it costs to exist, okay? That's like the level of inflation, how much things cost as we go on. So we're starting here at 2014. All right, see right there? 2015, well, it's starting to rise a little bit. There it goes. And suddenly the Affordable Care of the ACA benchmark looks what happens to the price going up. By 2017, yes, it had gone up a little bit on the Consumer Price Index, but take a look at the employers. Well, heck, the employers thing had gone up about 16%. Well, same time, the Affordable Care Act insurance for people on that 25 million we're talking about, theirs had gone up roughly 32%. Premiums had increased to 32%. And the health insurance company said, oh, yeah, and you also have the, you got to have the prepaid stuff. You got to have the deductible. And the deductible, they were raising up all along. So here's what's happened. 2017 up to and 2018, 2019, everything is skyrocketing. And take a look at the Obamacare cost. By 2018, it had jumped up 78%. All right, now, when we reached 2020, COVID hit. All right, new president, COVID hit, and the government said, you know what? We're going to not limit it just to people at $150,000 in income. What we are going to do, we're going to open it up to virtually anybody who wants to get it can qualify for Obamacare. Whether you're making six figures, you're making $500,000, you're making $750,000, you get Obamacare. You could get that premium, and the government decided, here's the problem. Turns out Obamacare was a lot more expensive than we thought. So what did Washington do? They said, okay, let's create subsidies and we will help to offset the cost of the health insurance we've got for those 25 million people. Not you, the 25 million people on Obamacare. Let's subsidize it. So every year they wrote the insurance companies, health insurance companies, a check. And that check was for billions of dollars to subsidize what the people were on Obamacare, the 25 million, what they were paying. All right, 25 million people on Obamacare. All right, they were subsidizing it with your money. Now, you had your own insurance policy. You were doing your own thing, paying your own thing, but you were also paying for the people on Obamacare with your taxpayer dollars were being sent to the insurance companies. Well, now the insurance companies knew that everybody had to have health insurance. Everybody, you, me, you name it, everybody had to have it by law. So what happened was they started raising their premiums. And they started making money hand over fist because by having the $10,000 deductible, people couldn't afford to go to the doctor. I mean, think about it. You weren't going to get your insurance kicking in until you tapped up at 10 grand. Well, not everybody's going to spend 10 grand, and not everybody can afford to spend 10 grand, and especially the people on the 25 million people on Obamacare. Their premiums are going up and up, and sure enough, take a look. Like I said, by 2019, 2018, the premiums for them had gone up 78%. So then in 2020, when the government says, okay, everybody gets Obamacare who wants it, really rich people started to say, well, why should I have the old insurance that I'm paying money on? Let's get Obamacare. The government's going to help pay for it. And so what happened was, well, check the lines, folks. The Consumer Price Index started climbing as it always does. That's inflation. And we can talk why inflation happened. But you can see it going on to 21, and by the time 2025 came around, the Consumer Price Index had jumped up 39% from where it was clear back in 2014. Now, the average employer-based insurance, it had gone up 68%. That's me. I don't have Obamacare. I've got regular insurance, and my wife and I do. Our insurance is going up 68% because the insurance companies are saying, we got more people. We got to insure everybody in America, and everybody's got their little problems, and we're going to increase the deductibles, and people have to pay a lot of money. But those 25 million people who are on Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, their rates had gone up 129%. 129% in less than 10 years. And the government was still paying them a check every year for billions of dollars. Why? Well, the health insurance companies are making money hand over fist. They are literally, their value has gone through the roof. What used to be the cost of a share for United Healthcare was like $40. Now it's like $300 or somewhere in that range, because the company has become so valuable because they have so much money. So you're saying to yourself, well, there's the problem, but they're going to cut off the subsidies. Yeah. The president says we're going to cut them off, and he said what we're going to do is we're going to take that money and mail it to every one of those people on Obamacare, health savings account. They can choose their own people. Is that going to help people like me who's not on Obamacare but has employer stuff? Well, I don't know. I don't really believe it will. But getting rid of the subsidies, and now the Democrats, through Chuck Schumer, says, well, let's extend the paying these healthcare companies for 3 years. What's that going to accomplish? Nothing. Healthcare companies are simply going to keep raising their rates because they can, and because they are becoming so incredibly wealthy you can't believe it. Now, I tell you all of this because now you're wondering what's going on. Well, the subsidies are due to end at the end of December. And people are saying, my health insurance is going to go up 100% on Obamacare. Yes, that's 25 million people. I can't emphasize that enough. There's 330 million people in the country, and everybody has to have insurance, but 25 million people are getting Obamacare out of 330 million. And their premiums have gone up. But now people are on Obamacare who really shouldn't be there. It's only designed for people in the lower income strata. But because you and me, by law, have to have health insurance, I always have had it. But people who didn't, younger people who didn't. And younger people now under the age of 26 said, hey, I'm staying on mom and dad's policy. I can stay until I'm 26. That's exactly what they're doing. So now you understand what's going on, folks. Will it happen in December? Will the subsidies end? I can't tell you. I don't know. But there's a quick look at what's happening for those 25 million people, and the health insurance companies are the ones making money. Do they need to be controlled? The answer to that question is yes. Do they need to have their profits brought back down? The answer is yes. But short of nationalizing them, what are you going to do? Don't know. But maybe the health care plan, by giving the money to people, say put in your health savings account, maybe that will make the health insurance companies start bidding to get people's business, and they won't get an automatic check from the government, which they just say, man, we found money. They're throwing money at us. That's taxpayer dollars. And folks, we got a $33 trillion debt, and it gets bigger every single day. And tossing 60 or whatever it is billion dollars to the health insurance companies every year to pay for 25 million people's subsidies. That's what you're dealing with. Now you know what's going on. You got a complaint? I suggest you contact your congressman, you just contact your senators, and just say, hey, I looked at the graph, I saw what's going on here. Why are 25 million people being subsidized by the rest of the American populace? Because that's exactly what you're doing. If you have any questions about that, feel free to ask. But now you know a little more than you knew before. That's all I got, and now you know.